All right. JavaScript. Well, we also have object-oriented programming capabilities in JavaScript, and well, today we will go over how to create and define classes objects in JavaScript. Since you are coming from, you already see object-oriented programming in Java, I will rely on that knowledge a bit and focus on the differences mostly. But I need to say that it is quite different. JavaScript has really interesting features that doesn't exist in Java object-oriented programming. Well, and I can summarize them in this one sentence. JavaScript object is a dynamic collection of properties. This sentence reflects and covers all the differences compared to object-oriented programming in Java. What is that? Well, first, how do we define classes in Java? Well, let's talk about the social media platform. If you would implement it with Java, you would first say, okay, I need a user, and then a user has a name, ID, email address, messages. So you would think about its attributes, properties. Then also you would also think about, okay, what a user can do. We also need to define their functions, like they can post a message, they can see their timeline, they can comment, they can like a message, and so on and so. Once you design everything, based on that design, then you would be able to create instances of that object. And at the runtime, I wouldn't have the feature to say, okay, I forgot that feature, now let's add it. I forgot that function to add it, now let's add it. I wouldn't have that feature at the runtime. And the JavaScript, because it is static, but JavaScript is a dynamic structure. What it means is, at any time, I can add some more attributes to the classes, and I can remove attributes from the classes. And I can add functions to the classes even at the runtime. Even after I created the instance, I can still keep adding functions and so on to the classes. So this is one of the main difference. It's quite dynamic, that we will see details later on. And the other one is, well, it's just, you can also consider it as like a list or a collection of properties. So again, in Java, what we say is a class has an attribute and the functions, attributes and the functions. So there are two different things. We need to define the variables, and also we need to define the functions. But from a JavaScript perspective, if you remember, we had only 7 data types: numbers, strings, big integers, and so on and so, and undefined, null. And then there was one sentence that we were saying, functions. Functions was also a data type. So from a JavaScript perspective, functions and data, numbers, strings are same. They are both data types. So that's why you don't need to say that, okay, an object has classes, has functions and attributes. You can just say it's just a list of properties. And a property can be number, string, or it can be a function itself also. So this is one big summary of what an object is in JavaScript. And this property, now this is also quite interesting. From one aspect, I'm using Java object jargon. I'm saying that, okay, this is a class, this is an object. But you will also see that it's very similar to what you do with the dictionaries in Python. So again, I said that it's a collection of properties, but it's also, what is a property? It's a key value pairs. What is the key? It's the name of your variable, name of the functions that you have, and value is the value of that variable or the definition of that function. And as I said here, like classes and objects can be changed, edited during the execution of a program. So it's a quite dynamic definition. And there are 3 ways to create an object in JavaScript. One of them is object literal, which is we created object using a JSON notation. Do you know what a JSON notation is? Have you ever used JSON data? Dictionary, database. What is it? Metadata. Okay, well, in the following slides, we will get into what a JSON data type is, but
I used it to operate a bot, Discord bot.
for the Discord bot,
Yeah.
what did you do with that? Like, how did you use it? You keep it JSON for what?
.json, it was .json.
To what?
To read like a YAML code and do it with the AI. It's like a scenario. To read a scenario and operate it.
Yes, so what I can say is JSON is not for only web programming, even though we will see it in the later on. It is a very popular data type that is used in AI, machine learning, in any way that you are dealing with a structured data. As one of your friends said, a database. Yeah, you can use it also like a database. So you can keep your data set in a JSON format. So we will see that later on, but basically, yes, we can use JSON notation to create objects. And also, we can create a class like what we were doing with Java. Like we can define a class, it has a constructor, it has functions and so on. And then we can create instances from that. Or we can create an object based on another object. So here you see an example for this. The first one is we say that constant cat is between the curly brackets lex 4 eyes 2. So this looks like a dictionary in Python. But it is actually an object from JavaScript. So this is called JSON notation. This is for an example for the object literal creation. And so we basically say that, okay, cat but here is this interesting thing. We don't define first what is a cat. Because in Java you say that, okay, cat should have a legs and should have an eyes. But here what we say is we created an instance and define it. So now we have this cat class, which we also have an instance of it. It has legs and eyes. Then, by using this cat object, now we are giving an example for this third example. By using this object that creates, then I'm using this instance of cat to create another class, which I call it my cat. And then you might think of it as like an inheritance. So my cat extends cat. You might think it in this way. And then I add, actually, this is interesting. I add another attribute to my class of my cat, so which is name. Now this my cat class will have 3 attributes: legs, eyes, and name. So it's like a class that extends the other one, and it puts some more attributes in it. But we did it with an instance of a class. So this is the third example for this. Now we will see more details for each cases. First, yes, how can we create with the JSON object? First, what is JSON? What does it stand? JavaScript Object Notation. Even though in its name it says JavaScript, as I said, it is pretty popular data type. If you are dealing with any structured data, JSON, you can create JSON files and share it with it and use it in other tasks, in other programming languages. So just to give you an example, back in the days when X name was Twitter, so they were sharing their data. Again, I'm giving this example because it's relevant to your course project. They were sharing their data. You were able to crawl the messages, the Twitter data in JSON format, because the JSON format allows you to has a very strong strong representation. So you can represent very complex data. So this is, even though it's so to sum up, even though it says JavaScript object notation, actually you use it in all other tasks and with other programming languages also. Like Python has also its own library to parse JSON data and so on. And like here you see an example for it. We have a class which has this list of properties: first name, last name, height. You can consider it as height as the attributes, and also the function getName function. It's also one of the properties that which has this definition. And you are familiar with this keyword from Java. So we also have it in JavaScript, which refers to the class itself. And when how can we access these attributes? Well, there are 2 ways. Again, JavaScript does this a merge of Java and Python. So you can either, like Java, you can access it with class name dot attribute name person.height, or you can treat it as like a dictionary as in Python, and you can say person between the square brackets. You can give the attribute name. So both are valid to access an attribute in a JavaScript. Similarly with the function name, you can just call it with its name, class name dot and an object name. And now, quite interesting thing is, as I said, that it is dynamic. You can literally create an object, an empty object, by just using these curly brackets and do not put anything at all. So you can just say this constant hoja, then you'll just get these curly brackets. It will be an object. It doesn't have any attribute. It doesn't have any function at all. It just has a name, but it's a class now. And then what you can do is you can just continue to fill it. Like, okay, I want to put a name attribute, I want to put an age attribute, and I want to even put this toString function to define it, and then I can define a function for it. But you can literally start a class definition from no place, from an empty part, and then you can fill it up based on your needs. Do you have any questions so far? All right, then I'm moving on. And also, if you have just these two variables, name and age, then you can even merge them and combine them to make it an object. By using, if you put these curly brackets, and then if you say name and age, then it will become an object that has these name and age as the attributes. Slide. We have this get, set, and delete functions. These are also, get and set, I will talk about it later on. It is like a keyword. We have gather and setter in Java to access private data and modify it. Here it works quite different. Get and set is actually a keyword that we will see later on. And delete is, you can also literally delete attributes. Like, I don't want to have any more name attributes, so I will just delete it. So again, this is pretty dynamic. You can add name, then you can delete it later on, and so on. My question is, why? Why should I need to delete an attribute that I had defined previously?
Because I don't need it anymore.
I don't need it anymore. Yes, and some practical more examples, like what's it sound like? I can just keep it there.
Delete the post, maybe now.
This is not deleting a post actually. This is deleting the attribute itself. So like your users will have no more posts, let's say it in this way. It's not deleting, so why, what's the practical point of it? Like I could just keep it. Why should I do it?
For spacing.
For space, yes. Like first, yeah, I might want to keep it more space in my memory, so better memory management. And also like I want to send my data to the server. So yeah, maybe if I don't need it there, I don't need to send that data, then I can just also delete it. That will also reduce my network communication costs.
Maybe for permissions, like the admin, for example, should have different abilities than the user.
Yeah, maybe again, this depends on the data. Yeah, but again, yes, for the admin side, maybe you need this name and you did some calculations. But then when you are done with your calculation and you want to send data to the user, maybe they shouldn't have access to the password, so you are just deleting it. Maybe I'm just now making up a scenario for that one. But this is again a very interesting case that you can add and delete attributes. And in the runtime, again, this is not the compile time. This is not the compile time issue. This is when your program is running. And the other one is, again, now we are using this JSON format to create objects. We can also convert them to strings by using just this JSON.stringify function. Why is that important to convert it to a string? Actually, let me ask this question after I explain this. And also, if I have a JSON string, I can use this JSON.parse function to create an object again using that string definition.
To save the data.
to save the data and to send the data. Like think about that in the front end, or in some place you did some calculations and then you want to send that data to the backend. So you can basically save it, convert it to string, write it to a file, send the data to your server, and then in that server side you can just create that object again by using this JSON parse file, so that your backend and front end, they will have the same files at each end. And now I was keep talking about this. I was talking about this JSON. Now let's get into more detail about it. Here you see a schema that shows the main syntax of a JSON file. So what is that? Let me zoom in a little bit. So I can keep an object in JSON file by which between the curly brackets, I just need to define the properties, which are the name of it, colon, and the value. And each of them, I can put multiple of it. Each of them needs to be separated with a comma. And I can also put an array by using square brackets, and then I just need to put values. And what is a value? Well, a value can be a string, number, object, array, true value, false value, or a null. So this is the main syntax of a JSON file. And this is pretty powerful data format. It's just a text file. You can just create a JSON file using your regular Notepad text editor. And you can, again, you can represent very sophisticated data. Very sophisticated but structured data by using JSON data files. That's why it's not only used for JavaScript, it's really used in many data science, AI operations. Whenever you are dealing with any data and you just want to save it and share it with the others, JSON file is a very effective way to do it. Now, here is an example that I created, which maybe might be useful for you for your course project. So here you see an example JSON data for a social media platform. Assuming that I have this social media platform and I want to keep this data, I want to keep this data in a JSON format, which you will do in this first phase of your project. So let's look at this part. So this is a very long file. It starts from here and then continues from the second column. So everything is between this curly bracket and that curly bracket, okay? And then in that one, I put actually values, which is platform, mini social, when it is generated, and the users it has. So you might think about it, actually, your social media platform data is just a list of users and each user has a list of messages. So what I do is, because of that, I will keep a list of users as an array. That's why I have these square brackets here. And then for each user now, what can I put? User ID, username, full name, email, whatever you need. This is based on your requirements, join date, and also now it can be in a nested structure. So in a user, I can also put a profile data, which has bio, location, profile picture. Then I can also put a statistics that keeps the number of followers, followees, the number of messages posted by that user, last login, and so on. And for each user, I can also keep their messages, posts. And this is also in the list. And in that one, I have one post here and one post here. So each post, then you can think about it, it should have a ID, content, when it is created, how many users liked it, how many comments it has, and so on. So again, it depends on your needs. And then my second post. So by even having this nested structure, I can really store very sophisticated data, like a social media platform. The social media platform data is not as simple data because you have users, you have messages for each user, messages has its own features, users has its own features. So it's actually pretty, and a message is it can be an image, text, a combination of those. It's not a simple content, but you can keep all of them in a JSON file. So that's a very powerful way of representing data. Any questions so far? All right, seems not. Then let me continue. And when you have this kind of a very structured data, you might want to get some of them. This was actually happening to me a lot when I was dealing with this Twitter data, because Twitter was sharing so much data about each tweet, about users, that I literally don't need it. Let's say I just need the content. I just need the username and the content. That's it. I don't need the others. So it's a very common way, like especially or in any data science operation, you get a very large data, but you don't need all of them. Your analysis will depend on only a few columns, a few data types. So what you can do is, I just need to get those, extract it from that object. How can I do it? Well, if I have an object, in this example we have this student object, which has this first name, last name, age, GPA, and also an address, which is by itself an object also. It has its own city and street. And let's say that we just need first name, age, and city. And then I want to put them in a variable. If you remember the spread operator, so here we will use it here, like this structuring, this 3 dots, we will use it here. So how I can do it? Well, again, between curly brackets, I need first name, age, and the city. But the city is under address class. So I need to say under address, I need the city, and everything, whatever is left, I will put this other details variable. Then I say that is equal to student. Then what will happen is, it will basically go extract it, whatever I need, and then it will put those in those variables. But the thing that you have to pay attention is that this first name should match with this first name. With age, it should match with this age. You cannot, if you put like an underscore or change the name, then you will not be able to extract it. So those names should match.